And so in treating yourself like fiction and beginning to treat others like fiction, we get at a place in which we can approach tension, drama, conflict, emotions, the experience of the world through another's eyes, kind of without judgment. And it's a really
Right.
important part of the process because then over time, we become characters outside of our own story. And that's when we have the most power to actually author our lives and take charge.
In a world that often pulls us apart, More in Common brings us back to what matters. Hosted by Gerren Taylor and Keith Richardson, this isn't your average podcast. It's a challenge to think deeper, question louder, and grow further. At More in Common, we work with NFL teams, tech companies, and professionals across industries to improve communication and foster compassion. And with a focus on emotional intelligence, we aim to bring a wealth of experience to help you navigate the complexities of human connection. We've never been more connected and yet more isolated. We want to explore the roots of that tension and offer a way back to what we all need: real human connection. Enjoy the show.
Welcome, everybody. This is the More in Common podcast. Keith's doing his red leather, yellow leather. We've got a guest this week. This is Katie McCleary, the author of Bridge the Gap and host of The Drive on NPR's Cap Radio, founder of the youth writing nonprofit 916 Inc., that's INK, a writing workshop for youth. And her work has been featured in Forbes, Fast Company, and NPR. She's known for helping leaders and teams turn tough conversations into genuine collaboration. Hello and welcome, Katie.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Happy to have you. So you and Keith know each other because you also work in LQ, is that right?
Yes, listening intelligence. We indeed have worked together for 5 months. No, 4 months.
4 months.
This is
4
fresh.
months.
I love a fresh friendship, fresh relationship.
Yeah.
Fresh.
So tell us, Katie, what's
And it's
your origin story a little bit? Can you give us a bit of the background of how we got to having you today?
So one, I love that you use the word origin story because indeed we all come from one. And a big part of my origin story is understanding origin stories. So I really claim many identity labels and titles, but one of them is writer. I believe that I was born into this world to witness it and to write about it and to understand consciousness and humans and human dynamics through the most fundamental thing that we do, which is storytell. We storytell to ourselves and others. So my origin story is that I came to be here because I'm really obsessed with how humans show up in their own story and in other people's stories. And that's my journey. And I've had to figure out how to monetize it and make it impactful. And I've talked too much now.
No, not at all.
I don't
So
think
what
I don't
about
think you can talk too much.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask particularly about the project Bridge the Gap. So addressing that, what do you mean? What's the gap that's being addressed there, and how does that work for us?
Oh, I assume you're talking about this book.
Oh, look at that. See?
There we go.
I don't know if you can see it.
What up?
I got it behind me.
This is how I know you're a professional. Props ready.
Okay. What is Bridge the Gap and what is the gap that we are bridging? So, first of all, I have a co-author in this work with myself. Her name is Jennifer Edwards, and she's a divine human being and completely opposite of me. And we wrote this book to bridge our own gap between each other. And we have a very particular methodology that we thought would really help ease a lot of the political polarization that people are feeling in their families, at work, wherever they go. And we're really committed to the fact that the American workplace might be one of the last places where we truly experience democracy. Like, you don't get to choose who you work with, you show up. And in this age, it's all how we navigate a lot of authentic conversations, meaningful relationships, and often our identity and our culture and ourselves get really wrapped up into that. So bridging the gap is really about what does it mean to bridge differences between you and others, in particular in the workplace, using curiosity. And so how do you equip people with perceptual curiosity in particular?
I love it. I think all of what you just said is prime about why we asked you to come on the show for our listeners who know this is the stuff that we talk about. And I love um, how you're doing that. Because I agree, the workplace in particular, because we also have a shared goal. And it's not always clearly defined depending on the culture of the workplace, but at the end of the day, there's at least a monetary shared goal of moving a business forward. So there's buy-in, and it's part of the reason that drew us to doing the work in corporations as well. I'm curious what inspired that. Like Gerren asked about the origin story, and you talk about people's stories. So how does that inspire you to want to bridge that gap?
So there's the origin story of me and Jennifer, which is very blatant. We talk about it on our TED Talk that we did not want to meet one another. We were introduced again, by a connector in business that was like, oh my God, you do this and this woman does this and you should meet each other. And we both did not want to meet each other. It was like, she's athletic Barbie, she's upper class, she's executive, she's corporate, she plays golf, she raises her kids very traditionally, she's a evangelical Christian. I am none of those things. And when we sat down, the same thing turns out to be true wherever you go. You begin to meet someone on an individual level and you hear their story, and you cannot deny each other's humanity, and that we had more in common than not. And so we decided, okay, why don't you, shout out. Why don't you come into my world, which was prisons, foster care, vulnerable youth, South Sacramento, which is a scary place to be. It is not a scary place to be. It's just everyday people trying to live their lives.
A lot of scary places that aren't scary places. Yeah.
Yeah. And then she's like, okay, well, you need to come to my scary place. Oh my God, people in Land Rovers and on golf courses and my giant mansion house that I have a total chip on my shoulder about wealthy people. I've had to heal it over and over and over again. Right. So I had to go to her scary places that I had judged and places that she had judged me. So, in witnessing her, and I use the word witness really intentionally, in witnessing her struggles, the heavy water that she carries, which is very different than the heavy water that I carry or that, other people may carry. It doesn't matter. We're all still carrying heavy water. And, just thought, wow, we just go about the world very differently. And I am here to witness her and experience her kaleidoscopic vision of the world. And she committed to do that to mine. And we thought, wow, all right, if we can do this in 2020, let's see what we can do in the workplace for people in a really practical, tactical.
And you talked earlier about your past, about your history, working in nonprofits and with incarcerated populations. We had Jesse Rodriguez on the show a couple weeks ago.
Oh, awesome.
He was a formerly incarcerated person in California as well. And I was curious for you, like, what about your background or your history led you into that kind of work? And how do you see the compassion and curiosity conversations translating in those spaces?
Yeah. So what led me into that work is that I grew up in really deep poverty. And my sister is medically complex, developmentally disabled, autistic, epileptic, kidney disease, and completely, totally 100% born blind. And growing up in poverty and navigating the healthcare system and watching a very young mother with no means struggle through that, and then a very well-meaning, intentioned father suffering from PTSD, and growing up in rural Idaho, a place of really intense, rugged individualism. I just have a lot of compassion for those who struggle. And I've been through it myself. I grew up a pretty lonely kid, and stories and television were the way in which I was babysat and the way in which I escaped. And so, like I said in the beginning, I really feel like I was born a writer. Like, I have been obsessed with authors and writers for a long time. So how I came to do the work is that I just wanted to give back. I was always involved in Key Club in high school. I'm the very first woman in my family to ever go to college in the whole lineage of the history of the McCleary Sonogroth world. And I got a degree in writing, creative writing, art. I went and got a master's of fine arts degree in writing and consciousness. And so all of that work has really led me to public service and going into places where we feel they are scary. They are so not scary. Going into places where real people are grappling with the everyday realities and situations of their lives. And so I have to show up to that work not only projected by my own backstory, because we often do show up just in our backstories and project that onto other people. I have to show up with radical curiosity to the heavy water that everybody's carrying, and also the radical curiosity that some people are not carrying heavy water either. And so, I think you can only tell somebody to be open-minded so many times. I think it's really about the skills that you have to be radically curious, perceptually curious about others. And that leads you to compassion and connection. So I've just always been called into those places, and writing saved my life on more than 3 occasions. And I know that the work we've done at 916 Inc. in prisons with women escaping violence, that writing has saved their lives too. So it's a calling for me. I'm pretty serious about it. And what I learned in those places was that no matter if you're sitting in prison or you're a preschooler just learning how to hold a pen and write your name and claim your name on the page, or if you're a senator, or if you're an NBA basketball player, or if you're an electrician, or you are a very wealthy woman sitting on a golf course, the pain and the ache of humanity is all the same. And it's all rooted in the stories in which we tell ourselves and tell each other.
So there's so much in what you just shared. We do a lot of conversation about emotional healing. Like that was our conversation with Jesse and healing his past trauma, his childhood trauma that led to all the decisions. You said you've had to heal multiple times your judgments towards wealthy. And, just talking about writing and helping others use that to navigate their story in order to show up as a better version of themselves today than maybe they did yesterday. What does that process look like? How does the writing show up for you in this work?
Yeah. So writing, while it is therapeutic, the writing that we do with people, and also maybe even with ourselves, is not therapy. I think that's a really important distinction. I am not a therapist. I am a writer. And when you are a writer, you learn a particular set of craft rules. And some of those rules are about how do we revise our stories? How do we understand the depth of humanity and characters and their full roundedness? How do we get to the plot and the plot twist really fast? So I take a lot of the lessons of what we learn as writers and in communicating to others, some like essential truth, even when the truth might be fictional. And one thing I say is that fiction can often tell an emotional reality over the events that actually happened. So in the writing process, we use an amalgamation of methodologies. And one of those is the Amherst Writers and Artists Method, AWA. There's thousands of us that practice this method across the globe. It's founded by my mentor, Pat Schneider. I've taken that and I've taken it to a level in which publication of your story really matters. And in that work, we treat everything like fiction.
Right. Yeah.
We gather in a room, we gather in a circle, we have journals, plain journals. You can bring whatever journal you want, but I encourage you not to bring a fancy journal, because often people with fancy journals don't write in them because they don't think that their words are worthy enough of the scribbles and the mess that they're going to make inside this beautiful journal. So we use just blank composition, cheap notebooks. We do ask that you put pen to paper and that you don't type on your keyboard or screen. And that's hard because some people have shakes and tremors. They can't read their handwriting. And I encourage them to let go of all that if they can. We put pen to page. We give out a prompt. And the prompt could be a poem. The prompt could be a set of smelly spices. A prompt could be seashells. A prompt could be whatever it is. We make it very tangible and kinetic. And then we say, it's time to put pen to paper. I personally write for 7 minutes. I've written way longer, like 30, 45 minutes with people, but 7 minutes is very, it's easy for people to digest who may not want to do it. And for 7 minutes, we're just going to write. And I want you to, this is what I say, I want you to speak to the page in your mother tongue. It doesn't matter if you don't make sense. Trust that your mind and your hand will connect in a very meaningful way because you are human and you will automatically do it. And you need to just let it go to the page. There's no right or wrong. There's no red pen to correct you. And at the end of those 7 minutes, I will call you back. And we as a group will ask only a couple questions of you. We actually won't ask questions. What we'll say is, here's what stayed with me. Here's what worked. And here's the line or an image or a word that I remember. That is it. We aren't a critique session, a workshop session. We love the baby words born on the page. And we treat everything like fiction. So even though you may be writing about yourself, it's not on me, the listener and the interpreter, to actually know if that is true or not, or to ask myself whether or not. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And so in treating yourself like fiction and beginning to treat others like fiction, we get at a place in which we can approach tension, drama, conflict, emotions, the experience of the world through another's eyes, kind of without judgment. And it's a really important part of the process because then over time, we become characters outside of our own story. And that's when we have the most power to actually author our lives and take charge.
I love that because it's both simple and somehow profound at the same time. It's deeply connective to how people experience storytelling, even in movies, right? I think people always identify with characters in fiction in that same way, where they can see themselves in certain situations, another person's shoes that they normally wouldn't. Now, when you're working through this methodology, do you find differences in how it's applied between a resource constrained environment versus the fancy corporate jet culture type folks, or the outcomes? Are those any different for you?
Great question, Gerren. So first of all, you talked about something that I think is really important about the movie. Like there's the fourth wall, right? So here I am immersive in an experience and I give myself over to the fourth wall, which says I will live in this world, even though I know it's not possible that we're living on Mars and growing potatoes out of our poop. I don't question it. I go with it and I live in it. And I ask people all the time to suspend judgment, disbelief, doubt, reality, whatever. And they say, oh, I can't do that. And I say, that's bullshit. You do it all the time when you go to the movies. All the time.
All the time.
We can do the same thing with ourselves and with others in different ways that will get us at a better tomorrow. Okay. So do I see any difference amongst the people and the classes and the race and the genders and the environments and et cetera, et cetera? Yes and no. Yes, into the fact that our environment completely shapes how we show up. So if you're in an environment that is resource rich and you belong there and you feel loved and whole, the different stories that you tell will reflect that because you will have an abundance mindset. You will feel comfortable. You will be willing to grow and be playful. So that happens. Versus in environments where it is literally hell on earth. Like prison, let's not romanticize it. It is not a fun place to be, nor to go. I've been in and out of different prisons, not myself like as a prisoner, but
not as an inmate. Yeah.
Yeah, like throughout the state of California. And primarily I work at Folsom Prison, the one that Johnny Cash made really famous. And yeah, there's different levels of prison hell. It's still prison though. And so when you're in those environments, right? So these are people who have lived through making a horrible, horrible decision if they are there for actual conviction. And they admit it. They're in hell. And so the stories are just going to be different. What's the same amongst all of us is a human ache to be seen and to be known. And it's to be seen and to be known, maybe not necessarily by others. I think that is something that we talk way too much about and give way too much credit to in this like work of like human beings. I think it's about being seen and known to ourselves, and that a process of sharing that with other people provides us inner clarity. And that's the ache that is the same. no matter where your human suit is situated in the world.
I love that. I mean, this above all to thine
Right.
own self be true, right? It's the Shakespearean refrain.
There's an element of you've experienced the check-in, and we've done the check-in, so I'm just drawing on the past episodes here. The audience understands, like, and we talk about that separation of self from others so we can remove judgment of them, right? Because we conflate other people's emotional states with our own emotional states, and then we have this weird codependence on emotional experience through the world. And I think what's interesting about the authoring of your life, and tell me if I'm way off base here, but it seems like it's giving people an opportunity to separate themselves from themselves so they can observe themselves objectively and see what is true and what isn't true without, I mean, there in so many ways, I'm so fortunate to have met you 5 months ago because we never talk about these things, but my number one mission in life is to remove judgment from society and from ourselves, because that judgment just is such a soul sucker, and it's a social sucker, and it hurts all things all the time. Even though there is some utility in it if you are capable and emotionally aware enough to navigate that nuance. And I just think it's so awesome. It's such an amazing element of, it's such a creative way to help people do that and navigate it. I just, as I'm listening to you speak, not to take over here, that abundance versus survival, I think it's something to maybe add to, because we like to get dense as dense can be. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of this. We talk a lot about fight, flight, freeze, fawn, flow, as a lot of people in pop culture like to call it, the lizard brain. But when you're in these environments where survival is, and when you're in environments where survival isn't, like that space where we can be abundant because we have people who love us, we're able to eat today. We're able to check all the boxes, but not just the basic boxes. The people who love us piece is the biggest thing. And then it's just a different life experience. And like, I love the way you framed it, because I think it's so concise in expressing how different we experience life based on our circumstances. And going back to judgment, like it's just don't, because the neurology and our physiology is reacting wildly different in those environments, and we have no control over that. There's no question there, but I just
I was gonna ask. It was like, is this going?
I think
somewhere?
it's such a cool thing.
Just
So
out of curiosity.
yeah. It's just me
Okay,
sharing
I had
my
a lot of
thoughts.
thoughts about that.
Yeah,
So I have thoughts about that, right? So let's
would
talk
love
about
to
the
hear it.
people love to talk about lizard brain. They love to talk about the
Love
amygdala. They love to talk about performance and
Love it.
all the stuff, right?
Yeah.
I'm so judgmental and tired of that conversation.
Me too.
And I mean, like, so I think that a value that I deeply carry within myself is just this desire to be unique, and it probably just is about me trying to get attention. But so in Bridge the Gap, we do talk about the amygdala and the lizard brain and performance, right? And how it hijacks us and hijacks our prefrontal cortex and all that stuff. We have personified the amygdala as Amy. And so what we talk a lot about is that Amy is riding shotgun on your shoulder. And Amy is your frenemy. She's your best friend because she's going to keep you alive, whether that is a threat to your physical being or it is a threat to your identity. Because the same reaction, right, is the same. Right? Amy's not helpful. And so what we need you to do is to understand sometimes, are you in charge or is Amy in charge? And then that's where we get into a lot of like my like where I want to live. I want to live in the limbic system. I want to live in how we shape stories and core memories and process them. And I think that can get you objectively outside of yourself and make you less judgmental, because if we're being radically honest, judgment is tied into our nervous system and our body. And so while I love your mission, Keith, I'm not sure the human suit can be non-judgmental.
Totally
So we
agree.
have to be able to equip people with a way to do that. And if I'm being even more radically honest, this conversation has always lived in therapy. Yeah, well, most people aren't accessing therapy because they don't believe it, they don't trust it, they think it's brainwashing, or they can't afford it, or they don't have access to it. In addition, this conversation has lived in optimization of performance in sports, and that has completely translated into the corporate world. If you go into the corporate world and you start doing learning and development, guess what you're going to get? A whole lot of sports analogies and about performance. And we act like the human is this like performance machine. And if we can all just be Kobe Bryant or be Tiger Woods or be that or be this, like, man, you're part of a team and like we're going to win the gold medal. It reeks of competition. It reeks of whiteness. It reeks of privilege. And it never, ever, ever, ever spoke to a human like me. So the conversation I'm interested in and bringing into the boardroom, the workplace, is really about the power of the human mind. And I believe that the mind and the brain are completely different, actually. And the limbic system is the connection between the human brain and the human brain and your witnessing conscious mind. And so I told you I have an MFA in writing and consciousness, so I get like super metaphysical about it, which hasn't had its place or heyday in the workplace unless you look at a bunch of insanely successful CEOs, and you know what the number one thing they'll tell you is critical to their success is meditation. And then if you get like even deeper with them and you knock them off their seat and they get really real with you and not on their speaking points, they will start to tell you about a metaphysical conscious world in which they are highly aware of about themselves and how they maneuver themselves through society. I believe all of that is happening in the way in which we write. And I have a lot more to say about it, but I've said a lot.
I mean, that definitely goes very deep. And we'll have a couple more questions, but as all of our listeners know, we like to keep our episodes digestible because we do get rather thick here into the weeds. So we'll let everybody think about what they have, and we'll bring Katie back for next week's episode so that we can discuss more. We want to talk more about not only that thought process, the consciousness, but some of the pushback that you get, how you're working through that and what the future holds for Katie. And we didn't even touch on some of the other things that you do. You do so much. You're such a popular lady.
So
Katie.
much.
It's all around the story.
That's right. This is the More in Common podcast. I'm Gerren Taylor. That's Keith Richardson. Do all the things where you like and you subscribe and you share. Leave us comments. We enjoy to read them. It brings me pleasure. Keith, any partings on this episode?
No. I'm just swirling with thoughts at the moment. I'm looking forward to continuing the conversation. Keep swirling.
Keep the swirl going.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for joining us. We'll see you next week.